In this video, we're just going to be having a look at how the ABS actually goes about calculating the rate of inflation. So basically, inflation is measured by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and it's measured on a quarterly basis. So we will get inflation figures for every 3 months, and it's the most common indicator of the rate of inflation in the economy. So basically what they do is the ABS go around to different retail outlets. So they'll go around to Coles and Woolworths and JB Hi-Fi and all these different stores to basically see what's actually, if their prices have increased or decreased. So every 3 months they go around to see what the quarterly changes are in the average price of goods and services. And they will survey the prices of both locally made and imported products because they want to get an indication of what we're spending our money on. So imports are included within the Consumer Price Index because they are spent by Australian goods and services. So various retail outlets are surveyed, supermarkets, department stores, takeaway food outlets, and they basically just ask them if their prices have gone up or down in the last 3 months to get an indication of basically if prices are going up or down. So within the regimen, and the regimen refers to all the basket of goods and services that are included in the CPI. So basically, the ABS measures the price changes of 100,000 different individual goods and services. So there are 100,000 different goods and services included within this CPI, and they go around the ABS every 3 months and ask the retail outlets, have your price of chips gone up? Have your price of deodorant, shampoo, all of these different products, 100,000 different products, and then they divide them into 11 different categories. So the 11 different categories are food and non-alcoholic beverages, clothing and footwear, housing, furnishings, transportation, communication, tobacco and alcohol, health, recreation and culture, and education. So the 100,000 goods and services get placed into these 11 categories to see, and then we get basically see whether these categories on average have gone up or down in price. So examples of what's included in each category. Well, within the food category, we're looking at fruit and vegetables, meats, all the food basically. Clothing and footwear, shoes, jeans, tops. Housing, the price of rental accommodation, so how much the average rent is. Within transport, you've got cars, petrol fares, public transport. So basically, obviously within alcohol, we have beer, wine, spirits. So we calculate basically all of the changes in price of all these different goods and services, and then that'll help us to determine whether prices have gone up or down. It's only goods and services spent by consumers, so it won't include like machinery used by businesses. Basically what happens is each of these 11 categories here receive a weighting based on the importance to people's spending. So for example, if 20% of the average household's income is spent on housing, then that would get a weighting of 20%. So the weightings are reflective of what percentage of our income the average household is spending their money on. Each item in the regimen is weighted according to its relative importance. So basically, of those 100,000 goods and services, they would all get a weighting. So for example, butter might get a weighting of 0.0001% or something like that. And that will be combined with all the different other types of food to get an indication of what the weighting of food would be. And then these weightings are reviewed every 5 years because people's spending patterns change. So, alcohol and tobacco might have a weighting of 20% because we spent them more on them in the past. Then their weighting might go down to 15% if it's a smaller percentage of the average household income. Expensive or frequently purchased products making up a high percentage of our income gets a higher weightings, and therefore it will affect inflation more if those prices go up. Less significant items will receive a smaller weighting. If their prices go up, it doesn't have as big of an impact on inflation. So basically these are the weightings. Housing gets a weighting of 22%, has the biggest weighting, then food and alcohol, all the way down to communication. And you've got things like health and transport in the middle. So basically we're saying the average household spends around 22% of their income on housing. It's not going to be the case for every single household, but that's the average. So basically it's also worked out that the average household income is about $1,371. So of that $1,371, about $310 is being spent on housing, $225 on food, all the way down to $37 on communication. So what's important to recognise is that if the price of housing went up 10% and the price of, say, communication went up 10%, the impact of the increase in housing prices will have a bigger impact on the CPI inflation because it receives a higher weighting. Just looking at inflation in Australia over the last from 1959 to 2009, A couple of key points. We had massive inflation in the 70s, and that was largely due to a lack of oil, and that was causing massive oil increases. In 2001, inflation spiked. Does anyone know what happened in 2001 or 2000? They introduced the GST, so that increased the price of goods and services. Here's another one looking at it for the last 20 years, and you can see a couple of other spikes. One in 2007, 2008, that was at the height of the mining boom. Another one in 2011, that was mainly due to Cyclone Yasi, which increased the price of like agricultural crops and things like that. So they've sort of been the two major spikes in the last sort of 10 years. One was due to a natural disaster, and the other one was due to sort of strong demand for our commodities. So there was lots of demand in the economy. Right, calculating inflation to finish off this video. Basically what they do is they use a base year for the CPI. So they in Australia, currently the base year is 2012, and that gets an index value of 100. So basically all that means is we're comparing the prices to what they were in 2012. So if the CPI is 170 in 2015, basically what that means is the prices are 7% higher than what they were in 2012. So if the current CPI was at 109, that would mean they're now 9% higher than they were in 2012, or the base year. So to calculate the CPI, what we do is we use the index at the end of the period, minus the index at the start of the period, and then divided by the index at the start of the period times 100. And that gives us the best indication of the average level of price changes within our regimen for the year. So here's an example. If the CPI was 108.4 in 2015, June 2015, and then 106.2 in June 2014, obviously the year earlier, what we would do is we would do 108.4 minus 106.2 divided by 106.2, and that would give us an inflation rate of 2.07%. What's important to recognise is that if the CPI goes from 106.2 to 108.4, that doesn't mean inflation's gone up by 2.2%. You've got to apply the ratio to those figures, and that will give you what the actual inflation rate was for that year. Okay, so summing up the CPI, there are 100,000 goods and services included in the CPI, and they are measured every 3 months to see if prices have changed. We measure retail outlets. Weightings are assigned to each of the 100,000 goods and services based on what the average family spends on different products. Goods are separated into 11 different categories. Categories with higher weightings have a bigger impact on the CPI. Weightings are revised every 5 years because people change their spending patterns, and therefore we need to reflect the weighting so they more accurately reflect our spending. And price changes for every category are compared to the previous year to see if they are trending upwards. Thank you for listening.